Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Embodied Divinity, where we explore the authenticity of the human experience and its sacred nature. I'm your host, Nikayla Mariah, and today we're diving into story time with a twist. So let's start with taking a big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Knowing in this moment, right here, right now, you are enough. You are worthy. You are lovable. Before I get into this story that's going to help us expand into our enoughness, into our knowingness, I'm feeling called to share that it's in those moments when you don't want to show up, when you are overridden by emotions and experiences and hard life circumstances, that your consistency and the habits and rituals that you've created for yourself will serve you. I want to remind you of that because sometimes it's showing up for ourselves on the days that we don't want to that change everything. All right, let's dive in. So, it's a story about self awareness, healing, and the journey back to being enough, just as we are. I'm going to share my own personal experience and loop in some big teaching moments because that's how we do here. So, some days life has a way of putting everything in front of you, your growth, your wounds, and those little whispers from within that say, pay attention to this. Today's episode is an invitation for you to sit with your own story, your own moments, and ask yourself, can I be enough for myself right now, just as I am? So let me set the stage. It all began on a day that I felt relatively normal. I woke up tired, I will admit. I hadn't slept much the night before. The nights before that, there were massive solar flares all week, and just like the insomnia was crazy. But I made a promise to myself and I kept it. I got up, I went to the gym. As I'm sure many of you can relate, some days it's not about feeling ready, it's about showing up anyway. And I was fine. The workout was good, or at least I thought I was. But as I continued to move through my workout, there was something stirring within me, a quiet but persistent feeling that said, look inward. So I did. And that's really where this story begins. As I'm finishing my cardio, I feel this nudge, a call to check in with one of my inner children. If you're not familiar with inner child work, it's about connecting to those younger parts of yourselves that hold on to wounds, unmet needs, and unresolved feelings. These parts of ourselves can show up unexpectedly, often when we least expect it. I have resources just like the Inner Child Oracle cards or the Inner Child Workbook or even the Inner Child Healing Workshop on the link below wherever you're listening to this if you want guidance and help in diving in. But for me, the part that showed up today, that part that wanted checked in with, was the part of me that used to tell lies. She'd exaggerate stories and create versions of reality that made her feel bigger, brighter, more enough. And this was a learned behavior. She was raised by an habitual liar, but she developed this in herself to feel this enoughness. And as I tuned in, I felt her shame. Shame that I thought I had put to bed long ago. And this deep, heavy shame whispered, I wasn't enough back then. I'm still not enough now. Looking back, I realized this inner child was triggered by something recent. My son, for the first time ever, lied to me. And it's like the only rule I have in my house is we are always 100% honest with each other. So we had this long, heartfelt conversation about it, and it was really healing for both of us. But that moment, him lying, me holding space, stirred something in me. It reminded me, my inner child that no one had ever held space for. No one had ever said, "You are enough. Let's explore why you're telling these stories. You are enough. Let's explore what unmet needs you have." No one showed up for her the way I was showing up for my son, and it created this huge crack open inside me. This is the beauty and the challenge of generational healing. Sometimes, as we show up differently for our children, we inadvertently trigger the wounds we still carry. But this is also an opportunity. By holding space for my son, I began to hold space for that younger version of me. And that was a powerful shift. The inner work unfolds like peeling back layers of an onion. Each layer reveals something new, something deeper. When we tend to these younger parts of ourselves with curiosity and compassion, we begin to rewrite the stories we've told ourselves. It's a process that requires patience and love, but it's how true transformation happens. So while I did the work with that shame and the part of myself that used to tell lies and exaggerate a long time ago, why I worked through it in the ability that I had, it was very different actually holding space for this part of my inner child the way I did for my son. And so it was this new layer of, even though you did those things, you are still worthy, you are still enough. Okay, so the day continued, right? That was first thing in the morning, not even 7 o'clock yet. The day continues, and I'm doing my best to just stay compassionate towards myself. I'm feeling all these feelings. But then I had already scheduled a meetup with my mom. Now, if you've ever had a family member who can push your buttons, you'll understand where this is going. Normally, I'd avoid situations when I'm already vulnerable, but she had already traveled here. This has been planned for a while. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I zipped up my energy. I took some deep breaths and I went with her. We ended up at a store shopping for a gift. And we walked in and it was a store full of men because we were at a store where we were buying a gift for a man. It was a very masculine environment. And that's when I noticed a shift in me. I was wearing a mask, not a literal mask, but an emotional one. There was this part of me that felt the need to impress, to be more than I was in that moment. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know any of these men. I wasn't like attracted to any of these men. There was nothing. It was just a random room full of men and my mother. But I feel this deep call to be more than I was. And then in the middle of that, my mom did something she often does. She tries to embarrass me. She brought up an old story, something from my past that I've long outgrown. And there it was again, that urge to overcompensate, to prove my worth in the face of discomfort. Obviously, this all happened in divine timing. I did that work that morning. And then I had a rare occurrence of meeting up with my mom. It was all divine. I see that now. But the point is that triggers are messengers. They reveal the parts of us that still ache for healing. And in that moment, I realized my inner child's shame and my adult desire to mask were deeply connected. The first step to healing is awareness. And when we notice these patterns without judgment, we begin to reclaim our power. This is where the power of conscious awareness comes in. Living in a state of awareness means being present with the uncomfortable. It's about sitting with those moments of vulnerability and saying, I see you. I'm here for you. This is not easy work. by any means, but it's the work that liberates us. So, flash forward. I notice all these things about myself. I'm being compassionate. My mom wants to hang out longer, and I say, I'm actually going to go home. And I find myself on the yoga mat at the studio. My intention for my practice was clarity about why these patterns were arising again, why I struggled to feel enough again, and why I kept looking for something external to fill the void. And then it happened. Lying there in that room, surrounded by 35 other souls, I felt Source. I felt this wave of love, this undeniable affirmation: you are enough. But there was more. Source whispered to me, look around. Every person here is walking their own path. They're using different tools, moving at different paces, but they're here, just like you. This room is filled with love. Can that be enough? Can you showing up be enough? Can you be enough for yourself right now? And I lay there, tears streaming down my face, my heart wide open. And for the first time in a while, I felt this deep truth. Life is happening for me perfectly right now. The past doesn't define me. The future doesn't consume me. All I have is this moment, and in this moment, I am enough. The present moment is where life unfolds. It's where we meet ourselves fully. When we anchor into the now, we begin to see that even the uncomfortable parts of life have a purpose. They're shaping us, teaching us, and guiding us toward a greater plan. One way to cultivate this presence is by shifting our perspective. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Ask, how is this happening for me? This subtle shift opens us to grace. It allows us to trust the greater unfolding of our lives. When we stop resisting the discomfort and start embracing it as a part of our journey, we tap into peace, a deep foundational peace. The uncomfortable moments are often the ones that shape us the most, inviting us to grow, to expand, to deepen our connection with ourselves and our source. So, as we close this sacred space today, I want to leave you with a few reflections. Ask yourself, what part of your inner child still seeks love and validation? Where in your life do you wear masks, and can you meet yourself with compassion in those moments? Can you embrace the uncomfortable as part of your growth? Remember, healing is not about perfection. It's about awareness, presence, and grace. It's about choosing to see yourself, your whole self, and saying, I am enough. Take a moment today and connect with the part of you that needs love. Maybe it's through journaling, quiet meditation, or simply placing your hand on your heart and breathing deeply. Whatever it is, let it be a reminder that you are whole just as you are. And I'm so incredibly grateful that you're walking this path with me. Remember to breathe deep and plan on miracles. Until next time, I love you big.